And welcome in, everybody. Brett Norsworthy, the pre and post game host, alongside Gary Darby of the Ole Miss Radio Network, joins us. He also is the co host of Sports Time on Sports 56 WHBQ in the afternoons on Sports 56. And Brett, it's good to have you. I'd love to have you every week, but I try to kind of mix it up throughout the year. And I think this is a great point for you and me to talk because we're at a point in the season to where things are getting really important, and the season is going to be paid by what happens the next couple of weeks. But thanks for jumping on for a few minutes.
Brad, always for you. Anytime, we're a third of the way through the season already, and after this weekend, we're through September for everybody in college football, and that's approaching. We're not at the point yet. I like to call it this. This is what you are. We're not there yet. Teams can still get a lot better, and with injury, sadly, teams can really regress. So we're not to the point yet of this is who you are, but we're to the point of you can really kind of start to tell the teams that if they have any modicum of good faith with the injury, that can be around at the end.
At one point last week, it was 45-3, and would eventually be 45-10 after some mop up duty. You and I talked, and I remember that conversation with you more than any of the others that I had because we discussed the fact that is Ole Miss really is good defensively and much better offensively with Chambliss, or is Tulane maybe not as good as we thought? You were leaning towards Ole Miss maybe a little bit better. I was kind of on the other end, but after looking at it, rewatching the film, I think I'm kind of leaning with you. Take me through your process of looking at the games from Arkansas, Kentucky, the wins, Georgia State, to Tulane last week, and kind of your overall thoughts.
I was really proud of the win at Kentucky. It sure felt a lot better than a year ago against Kentucky, didn't it? And I thought both this year and last year against Kentucky were really the same kind of games. Xerox copies of each other, how they played, and really how it came down to the end. This year, Ole Miss made some plays and had some good fortune, and last year we know didn't had that loose ball even after the long pass last year. Kentucky couldn't get over it. And just a great kicker, Caden Davis missed the field goal that would have sent to overtime, but this year got the breaks against Arkansas. I really thought last year at Fayetteville, we know in that series history, that was the outlier. In the 9 previous games, the total point differential was 59 points, so 6.5 a game. So you knew we would regress to the means in that style of game, and we did. It was a wild one. Both teams could really get anything they wanted on offense, but in a wild offensive game, you need one defensive play. Ole Miss made it, so feeling good. At the same time, getting a little bit healthier and a lot more experience in the offensive line. Brad, we've taken all the continuity and kind of team out of offensive line play with portal, with transfers, and we know in an offensive line they have to be a symphony. They can't be a jazz band. They've got to be one heartbeat. All the axioms from sports, that's what they have to be. So I think across college football, you're seeing offensive line play get a little better every week across college football because they're finally lining up by each other, and a few people getting healthier or close to 100%. In the defensive line, I was surprised with our defensive line push against Arkansas, and it came out nasty against Tulane, and really, I think affected the Tulane quarterback a lot early. He did not look like the player we had seen in Tulane's 3 previous games. So I think Coach Lane Kiffin's got his team, his coaching staff, and got the fans really building to that great boiling point that will be Vaught Hemingway on Saturday. We know what that game was like 2 years ago, Brad. I think in my years, part of the Ole Miss crew, hard to knock 2014 Alabama off. But I think 2 years ago was my favorite win. Down late, pretty big late, and get those scores on Saturday night. The crowd goes crazy. I think that was the Lane Kiffin rocket ship for our team and for his years at Ole Miss, and just a great job that he's done. I mean, just flat got a coach. We got the best coach in the country.
Yeah, you know how much I love radio. You and I have shared stories about our youth and growing up. I know you listen to KMOX and the Cardinals, and I grew up listening to Sports 56, obviously, and then the the station down in New Orleans, listen to the Saints and LSU growing
WWL.
up. Yeah, WWL. Thank you. To me, that was David's best call I've ever heard. Was 2 years ago LSU. Now he's had some great ones, and it's hard to really pin down his best calls. But listen to that, and hearing Harry, who, by the way, doesn't like LSU very much. Brett, I don't know if
No.
he'll say that on the radio much
Oh,
Saturday.
oh, oh, all over my 10th birthday, November 4th, 1972.
Yeah, and but Harry's a great guy, and I think Harry's best call was 2 years ago when he
It
said,
was.
"It's over, it's
It was.
over, it's over." I mean, just to me, it just gives me chills just thinking about that call.
And the great games lend itself to the better calls.
Sure.
But to capture that moment like they did, and I was down on the field, so I didn't get to hear it till listening back the next day and through the years. It's weird. Most of my college football viewing and listening comes next summer because when you're at one game, it's really hard. But David and Harry captured and John Darnell on the sidelines, and I tell John all the time, and I mean it sincerely, and not just because, but it's a big factor, but not just because everything happened in 1989 with Chucky, but in '89, that was a year of real transformation for me, and really falling deeply in love with Ole Miss.
Yeah. We won't get too down the rabbit hole with Ole Miss radio, but you know how much I love it, and you know, you've been a vibrant part of a lot of people's upbringing with Ole Miss football.
Thanks,
The pregame show with how well you've done with that. Of course, you and Richard did it for a number of years, which was great. Now you and Gary. Gary's got a new job that I talked to Gary in the press box. He's so excited about being the voice of Ole Miss men's basketball. He's going to do
and
a
we'll do
great
such
job.
a great job. He'll do such a great job for Coach Beard. And I told him, and it's a testament to what Coach Beard has accomplished and achieved. Think about how many people in their first year of Ole Miss men's basketball are coming in with this kind of team. I mean, it was a lot of years you're looking at that schedule and going, maybe we can win 13 or 14 or, go to the NIT or something. And, everybody's expecting, a great March Madness run, just like Coach Beard had last year. But it's so much fun. Brad, thank you for the compliment. I tell people on game day, I think my job is to make people heading to the stadium want to drive faster. I got to hurry up and get there. And I want to make people that can't be at the stadium feel like they're in the Grove and a part of it. And there's no compliment I get more than from someone that can't be there, that they have, an issue where either they used to could go and can't go anymore. And when they tell me it feels like they're there, that makes it so worth it. I want people to feel engaged because every home game, and I started from the beginning saying this, at some point during our pregame, I mean it, and I say it, I mean it sincerely, from the greatest place on earth and undeniably the greatest tailgate spot in college football. Welcome to Ole Miss and to the Grove.
And what I love about what you do, and I think I've probably heard every pregame that you've done, postgame not available to hear that, but pregame I always like to listen. And Larry Munson, who we all know, the voice of Georgia for a number of years, would always say, I'm the guy that draws the outline of the picture. My color analyst comes in and he colors in that picture. What I love about what you and Gary do, and you and Richard as well, is they would set you up perfectly to talk about the Grove, and then here you come filling in the picture, describing the smell, what you're seeing, the pageantry, the enthusiasm, the feeling. And to me, that's what makes it so special. And, I think it's going to be a big one on Saturday, probably the biggest game of the year in Oxford.
Brad, I wouldn't trade with anybody. I promise you, there's not a place, there's not a crew, there's not a team in all of college football that I would trade with. And on Saturday, 2:30, we can't ever seem to consistently get LSU at night, beat them in the afternoon in 2021 on Eli Manning Day, beat them at night in 23. And this time we get them on Saturday afternoon. Alabama and Georgia at night, okay, but that's fine. But 2:30 used to be the prime spot in college football, and it's going to be the prime spot this week against a great team that I think they're getting better. Had a really tough opening opponent against Clemson, already beat Florida, and they're getting well in the offensive line and the job that Brian Kelly's done. Look, when you're the winningest coach ever at Notre Dame, when you top Newt Rockne, when you top Lou Holtz, you know you can win a lot of ball games at a lot of places, and he's done it. He's done it for LSU, and they were my preseason pick to win the SEC. Garrett Nussmeier was my preseason pick to win the Heisman Trophy, and all those things are, excuse me, Brad, all those things are in play. And, 2 years ago, had to beat the Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels, so may have to beat the Heisman Trophy winner Saturday.
I had LSU and Texas in the championship game. We'll see if that happens. I had Texas winning it. They've struggled just a little bit, but they kind of caught fire on Saturday. I want to go to a position real quick, Brett, that I've taken a good bit of heat on, and that's the offensive line. I thought they struggled against Georgia State and maybe a little bit in the first half against Kentucky. Since then, I think the offensive line has been above average to even good in many instances. You look at someone like a Patrick Kudus, the transfer out of Arkansas, didn't play particularly well in Georgia State, but to be fair, he wore a black jersey during preseason camp. Now he's getting some reps. He's getting to be much more acclimated. And when Ole Miss brought in Delano Townsend, the transfer out of UAB, that game changed dramatically. And I think the offensive line is an asset to this team. Just curious as your thoughts, as they've taken a lot of shots, but I think John Garrison and the offensive line have gotten much better the last couple of games.
Well, they're getting laps around the track. They're getting more playing time together. They know the guy to their left or right a lot better, and you're seeing it at center, Bryson Sanders, what he's doing. I hope people realize this with just about everything out of shotgun. Every snap of his has been right on time, because if it's not, it blows up the play. We don't need Austin Simmons or Trinidad Chambliss back there playing shortstop and having to field something a little low in left or low in right or too high that blows the timing up. Sanders' snaps from shotgun all year have been room service, and he's played well. I thought that the game against Tulane was the best center to guard play we've had all year. And that's where football is won and lost, is inside at the line of scrimmage, point of attack.
And Brett, a couple more before we get you out of here today. You talked about it. Everybody's talking about the quarterback. We heard from Lane Kiffin on Monday at his press availability, asking about the quarterback. He said Austin Simmons is our starting quarterback if he's 100%. Obviously, he's been really excited about the ball security of Trinidad Chambliss, and Chambliss, who won the national championship at Fair State, has been really good for Ole Miss this year. I think a lot gets made. I'm raising my hand about being a starting quarterback. I think having two quarterbacks in many instances, in this case, is a positive for Ole Miss. Your overall thoughts about where the quarterback situation is? I know we kind of agree that this is Austin Simmons' team right now until he gets back on the field.
Well, I like where we are, and Austin Simmons has got to get 100%. It's hard to play that position and do what the quarterback's asked to do now, that when you're not at 100%. I thought his spelling of Chambliss for that drive against Arkansas was sensational. On one leg, he threw a touchdown. Imagine trying to do that. I mean, that was it with immense pain. But everybody just needs to trust the best coach of quarterbacks in the college sport today, and that's Coach Lane Kiffin. He's got it down at the most important position in all of team sports. Look what he's done through the years. Remember where Matt Corral was in 2019, and remember where Matt Corral finished. So I think people need to remember that about Austin Simmons. They didn't take Austin Simmons to SEC media days because he wasn't going to be really counted on. They were counting on him. He got hurt, and he got hurt badly. Had to be helped off the field with no pressure being put on it late at Kentucky. And I really thought it was his hip when he got bent up, but it was his ankle. And the Trinidad Chambliss story and the job that Coach Joe Judge and Charlie Weiss and Lane Kiffin have done. Just remember what Lane Kiffin did at Alabama with Blake Sims, Jake Coker, and a true freshman, Jalen Hurts. And now what he's done at Ole Miss with Matt and Jackson Dart, and what he's doing. Trust Lane Kiffin with quarterbacks. I just tell everybody, if you want to have a doubt about how we cover punts or what defensive alignment we're in or the offensive line play, okay, fine. That's all fine and good. But don't doubt Coach Kiffin on quarterback play.
Final question for you today, Brett. How does Ole Miss beat LSU? I think this line has went anywhere from LSU to 1.5 to Ole Miss 1-1. I don't know where it ends up. Maybe it's a pick 'em. What does Ole Miss have to do to beat LSU on Saturday?
Ole Miss got to run the ball, and the best Lane Kiffins have been teams that could consistently run the ball, whether it was his first year or into that second year going to the Sugar Bowl with Jerry Neely and Snoop Connor, into the Quinshon Judkins years. Last year we couldn't consistently run the ball. Now I think we can. And also remember how much LSU hurt Ole Miss last year off the edges and not picking up blitz pickup in that game. This year, starting with Kawan Lacey, man, that is a brick wall. When they send that blitzer, that guy's going to pay in the pocket. So keep that pocket clean. I think run the ball security always. But I think it's going to be the fun Saturday afternoon. And we're a little off the radar right now. And Saturday's the coming out party. The national story is going to be Coach Lane Kiffin's doing it again at Ole Miss.
And by the way, that documentary dropping Wednesday night on ESPN. So there'll be that point of the story as well. Remember, Logan Diggs, running back, transfer of LSU. Does he have a big game? I think there'll be a lot of focus on Logan Diggs as well, Brett.
He looked good. He looked good Saturday.
He did.
Poor guy just hadn't been able to get on the field and stay on the field due to injury. And, finally getting there. Looked good Saturday against Tulane. So one down against the team from South Louisiana. Now the big team, LSU. And Brad, the feeling and the atmosphere Saturday, we know what it's going to be like. It's going to be Ole Miss versus LSU. That's all it's got to be said.
That's all it's got to be said. He's Brett Norsworthy from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday in Memphis on Sports Time with Brian Dacus, Sports56 WHBQ. He's at Brett Norsworthy on Twitter/X, but we know him as the pre- and post-game host on the Ole Miss Radio Network, and he is a dear friend. Brett, thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you in the press box on Saturday.
Thank you, Brad. We'll be the two guys in jackets, won't we?
Always.
You got it.
We'll see you then.